emergency.
Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Black Soul Well podcast, where our mission is leading the culture to mental and emotional health through faith and education. My name is Kirby Anthony, and I have the privilege of hosting this podcast. I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening on Tuesday, January the 11th, 2022. Hey, look, y'all, the new year is here. We're getting it going, getting it popping. I hope that it has started off good for you. I hope it has started off on a positive note. Just know that things can get better. We might have some challenges, but they can get better. Hey, look, we are at episode number 12. This is our 12th episode. I want to thank you all who watch the show, who share the show, who tag your friends, who help us to keep the conversation going. Man, I really appreciate it. We're helping somebody. We're helping someone. Hey, look, I want to share with you a couple of details. First, visit us online at blacksoulwell.com. That's blacksoulwell.com. There you'll be able to find out more information about who we are, what we do, what the vision is, how you can get on our email mailing list, and etc. If you have any questions or you would like more information, email us at blacksoulwell@gmail.com. I also want to encourage you to connect with us on our social media platforms at Black Soul Well Podcast. We're on Facebook, IG, and YouTube. And if you're watching us on Facebook, I want to encourage you to share the broadcast, like and subscribe to our page, tag your friends in the comments, get in the comment section. Let me know where you're watching from. Hit us with some questions, share your thoughts. Love that. If you are watching us via YouTube, share the link with somebody and also subscribe to our page. Finally, I want to invite you to support us by picking up some of our merchandise. blacksoulwell.bigcartel.com. And you all hear dogs barking in the background because somebody is ringing my doorbell, but it's all good. It's all good. Just bear with me, okay? blacksoulwell.bigcartel.com. You can go there. I'm sorry, y'all. This is just so funny to me. This is the first time this has ever happened, but it's all good. You know, we don't play around here. We do not play. You come to this crib, you're going to hear some dogs barking, letting you know that it's real in the battlefield. But seriously. Go to check out our merchandise. We have t-shirts, hats, we have bags. I'm sure there's something there that you would enjoy. Now, let's get started with our mental health tip of the week. Our mental health tip of the week. This week's mental health tip comes from the Silence the Shame IG page. I was sharing with you all about Silence the Shame. It's a page on Instagram of a group of individuals who share and write from the perspective of wanting to help people be emotionally and mentally well. And they shared this graphic. I have a graphic that that's going to be up on the screen. And this is what the graphic reads. Rest and self-care are so important. When you take time to replenish your spirit, it allows you to serve from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Once again, rest and self-care are so important. When you take time to replenish your spirit, it allows you to serve from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. All right. So here are a few tips as that, or how can we put that into practice? How can we grab hold of that and walk it out? Here are a couple of things when I think about that. Make sure you're resting your body and your mind. Make sure that you are resting your body and your mind. You know, and our culture is one that will push you to your limits in the name of success and in the name of expression. And especially the subculture or the many subcultures of the African American community, where we always talk about the bag, right? Getting the bag, getting the bag. Let's go get the money. Listen, there's nothing wrong with getting to the bag, but get healed as well. Get healed as well, because you can't break generational curses just by getting to the bag. You know, if we were in church, I would say amen. But you can't break generational curses just by getting to the bag. Let's get healed as well. And a part of that, something that you can begin right now, you can put into practice starting tomorrow, is make sure that you're getting proper rest. You know, in the Christian faith, we call it a Sabbath. You know, God created, our holy doctrine tells us that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rested. He didn't rest because he was tired. He rested because he was finished. But what that is it's an example to us that we need to take time to pull back. Don't let the culture make you believe that, oh, I always got to hustle. I always got to grind. I always got to go, 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 go. Because burning the candle at both ends never ends well. There will be seasons where we're pushing and we're pressing in. Yes, we understand that, but it can't be a lifestyle. All right. So now we're going to get into tonight's topic, which is healthy mental and emotional tools for starting the year off strong. We have the privilege of having my friend and fellow author, fellow blogger, fellow poet, Miss Marisha Mathis. You can go ahead and bring her up on the screen. I'm just going to read a little bio about her. Marisha is a licensed clinical social worker. She's an alumnus of North Carolina Central University. Her personal experiences, educational background, field experiences, and observation inspire the backdrop for motivation. She has worked with children and families, veterans, adolescents, and the geriatric population. She enjoys working with at-risk youth and adolescents and specializes in intertwining purpose and therapy to build rapport, educate, treat, and advocate. She is also a spoken word artist, blogger, and author. As a matter of fact, I first met Marisha, it's probably been about 5, maybe 6 years ago. I was invited to a spoken word event, and it was so many dope artists there. I mean, really, really, really good poets. You know, some of you know that I dibble and dabble in spoken word poetry. I don't even really consider myself a poet. I am a retired rapper that still likes to write, but sometimes I write it in the form of poetry. And so when I went to this event called Power of the Tongue, shout out to my boy Charles Freeman. She was there and she was just awesome, man. She blew it out the park. But she's also a spoken word artist, blogger, and author. She has 2 published books to her credit. Beauty for Ashes, a collection of poetry and devotionals that formulate a memoir, and Close to Home, a mini-series of allegories that share and prompt readers to consider life as they know it, as well as the lives of others. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome my friend, Marisha Mathis. Hey, Marisha.
Hey, thank you, thank you, thank you. Those were some kind words.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's good to
And
be
check
here.
this out. And I got her new book. I got it right here, Inspired, a devotional for creatives. I just got it a couple of weeks ago. And you know what? I forgot to mention this, Marisha. When I published my first book,
Oh yeah.
Marisha was the one that helped me with that. Man, that slipped my mind until just a moment ago. She helped me with the editing and getting everything in order. So, girl, you just doing it all, man. You got it going on.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, look, please take a few minutes and share with us about your work in the mental and emotional health field, the human services field, being a social worker, etc. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm currently a mental health clinician, or what some people will call like a mental health therapist. I do outpatient therapy. I work with children that are involved or detained in a juvenile justice system. So I work with juveniles that are detained in a juvenile detention facility. And then
Mm.
I work with juveniles who may not be detained but are for some reason involved with juvenile justice. And then I also do some outpatient therapy with adults.
Oh
So
wow.
what that looks like, I feel like I said a lot. What that looks like is sometimes I do mental health assessments, which means I listen, diagnose, and provide recommendations. And then sometimes it's therapy, sometimes it's therapeutic groups, and then sometimes it's case management or substance abuse treatment. So it's an array of services.
Sure, sure, sure. Let me ask you a question. You talked about working with youth and adolescents. Wow, I bet you have some stories from working with that community.
Certainly, certainly. I think this generation, in and of itself, when I say this generation, I mean like Gen Z. They're a different generation uh, altogether. And then whenever you look at the climate that they've been born in or that they've witnessed, it creates a lot of different moods, behaviors, and experiences. So definitely a lot of stories I could share.
Yeah, yeah. About a month or so ago, we had a friend of mine on, and I think he's in Indianapolis, and he works in the human services field, and I can't remember his exact title, but he was sharing when he was on the show how that he also works with youth, and he had shared just a couple of the stories that he had shared would really make your heart break for kids, man. It's that saying, and it's in the scriptures that there's nothing new under the sun, and we know that that's true. But it just seems like, the kids today are dealing with stuff at such a younger age.
Mhm.
Like some of the things that I got into maybe when I was 13, 14. He was telling me, he actually told a story about children being exposed and getting in certain things and being brought into the juvenile justice system as young as 9 because of some of the things that they've done at an early age. And I was just really taken aback by that, man. Um, working in any human services field can be challenging, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mhm.
What helps you to keep going?
I would say prayer and self care.
Mm,
And part of the self care involves prayer. So
sure.
yeah, that's probably it. I think I couple or I compartmentalize or even categorize my job just like I would with anything else. I don't think it's a job that's like not doable, even though
Mhm.
mental health does have facets to it that can be stressful. But I think it's a matter of being able to separate the job from you.
Mm, mm,
And I've learned that recently. Like you have to be able to separate the two. So
mm.
prayer, definitely. Whenever the kids are on your heart, pray for them. But like you have to be able to separate those differences and then be able to practice the self care so that you can continue to pour out and give what you have.
Sure, sure. Real quick, you said separating the two, man. Separating the two. Um, as a pastor,
Mhm.
I can remember some years ago, I was living in Virginia at the time, and a fellow pastor had told me that one of the hardest things that he had to do as he was serving in that role is, and he said he was an assistant pastor at this time. He said that a gentleman at the church where he was at had a toddler that had got out of the house, went and fell into the pool and drowned. And of course, the emergency people came. They took the little girl, etc. And he said that he had to go with the father to identify the body. And he said, Kirby, he said that was by far the hardest thing I've ever had to do is to walk this man into that facility, and they pull out the little thing and say, yeah, this is your daughter. And I remember I left there. I called my wife and I told her I can't come home right now. I need to drive around just for a few hours and just kind of process and etc. And he said something very similar to what you said. He was like learning to separate the two. And he said, I'm learning, or that was part of what God allowed me to walk through, to learn how to, you know, trust God and walk through some of this stuff. But you have to know how to separate it as best you can, because he said, it'll eat at you. It'll eat
Mhm.
at you, and then you won't be good for anybody. Does that ring a bell? Does that ring true?
Def-
What you said?
Definitely, definitely. I think earlier in my career, when I worked with kids in the juvenile justice system and they got like hard time in the prison system because they were bound over into the adult system, I
Yeah.
used to cry. And
Mm,
these are like not my kids, not my nieces. We're not related, but I used to cry, like call my sister and cry.
mm,
Um, and so it became a thing where I had to get balance. And you still have times that when things happen, it shakes you. Especially like when I learn about kids that are being killed, kids that I've worked with and things like that,
mm,
or involved in very violent situations. But you do have to be able to separate it for the sake of rest.
mm, mm, mm.
Because if you don't, then you won't be able to sleep at night, or you may not be able to sleep the way that you need to. Or if you go to sleep, your mind is still running. It's you have to be able to separate the two. So basically, it sounds like what your friend was describing is what I call decompression,
Mm.
where it's like unloading for the day and getting ready to transition into another gear. It's necessary.
Sure, sure. Um, so the beginning of a new year is always a good time to process and reassess where we are mentally and emotionally. This is going to be kind of the meat of our time together tonight. What would you say are some good tools to help people to start off the year as it relates to mental and emotional health? And before you start, you know at the beginning of the year, people have all kinds of resolutions. They usually are surrounding physical health. Oh, I'm gonna work out and lose weight or get buffer or whatever the case is, which is nothing wrong with that. Or money. People say, you know what, money. I'm really gonna save more money this year. I'm gonna start a business. One of the things that I think is good that in the midst of the pandemic, I see more people talking about creating other streams of income, which I think is a great idea, especially for us as African Americans. But one of the things that I don't hear, and I never really thought about it. I certainly never said it, and even in churches, it's like when churches usually charismatic churches will fast. They'll go on a 20, 40, 30-day fast, whatever, at the beginning of the year, and there'll be this list of things that we're going to fast about. So we're going to fast that God will open this door for the ministry. We're going to fast for whatever. And I was thinking, I said, man, like how many times have I ever heard a church say we're going to fast for emotional health, like or we're
Mhm.
going to fast that God would help us as a church to take this more seriously, or maybe be more proactive and intentional about getting help or identifying. Certainly, I think my own personal opinion is that in the last 5 years, it has certainly got it has become a bigger target. You see more people in the Black community talking about it, but nonetheless, it's something that you don't hear a lot. Like, we're going to do this in the next year. We're going to get healed in the next year. We're going to, etc. So, can you take a few moments and just share what are some good tools that you would say, hey, look, as we start the year off, you got to have this in place in addition to your other goals?
So the first thing that comes to mind is introspection.
Okay.
Um, because you have to be able to identify some things. And
Mhm.
introspection looks differently for some people. Introspection for myself looks like journaling and then going back and reading what I read and seeing, what is my frame of mind here? What am I getting at? What am I feeling? And things like that. But
Mhm.
introspection is important. Um, because you need to be able to evaluate where you are to determine what needs to change.
Mm,
And
mm,
then sometimes introspection can consider input from other people. So let's say with you, if you start to notice things and you have someone you trust, you may go to your wife or someone else to say, "Hey, have you noticed this about me?"
mm,
That could be, am I withdrawn? Do I seem triggered easily? Triggered being when something happens,
mm.
it causes or provokes some type of emotional response. Am I triggered when this happens? Um, have I been moody? Do you think I'm moody? How long have you noticed this? Now, that's not something you want to go around asking everybody because you're going to get a lot of different responses. But just
Sure.
really pondering things or changes that you've noticed. And it could be as simple as, you know what, this is the third night that I haven't slept well.
Mm,
Or you know what, this is I noticed that I'm eating this type of thing more, or I'm eating more frequently, or I haven't really had an appetite. So definitely just focusing and honing in on yourself and what you have going on. And then the other thing that you want to do is transition to the more clinical professional piece of getting some people say a comprehensive clinical assessment, psychological evaluation, but getting some professional or clinical help because they can actually diagnose and become more specific on what may be going on. And that doesn't mean that a mental illness is present, but it could mean you have some things that you need to unload, or there could be a need for a paradigm shift. There may be a way of thinking that you have that may not necessarily be the best, and talking to someone can help you change that. So those are the two primary tools. Most people advise against diagnosing yourself. So if you see some things, um, there are certain websites that you can Google that will make you think you have a lot of different diagnoses, and that may not necessarily be the case. So I always encourage people to go the professional route if you can, to get a comprehensive clinical assessment or some type of mental health evaluation. The mental health um, portion or the mental health evaluations will always look at the emotional because they walk hand in hand. So you'll be able to see both components at once. So if you're experiencing something like difficulty controlling your worries,
mm,
you'll be able to find the emotion behind what's going on mentally. Does that make sense?
mm. Yes, yes.
So those are the main two. Most professionals recommend getting a professional evaluation versus doing other things, like Googling your own symptoms at home and stuff like that. You can practice self care, but you definitely should consider the professional evaluation. And something else you can do, a personality evaluation,
Mm.
because that'll help you understand kind of like what makes you tick. It
Sure.
Enneagram. I took an Enneagram personality test, and it's like, oh well, maybe I am an introvert, or I thought I was an introvert, but this is saying I'm an extrovert. Let's see if this aligns. So you could do things like that. There are some tools available for personality as well, because as you know, your personality also affects your way of thinking and your
Mm.
emotions. But personality tests would be as far as I would go to evaluate those type of things, especially if you're trying to rule out or establish the presence of mental illness.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you a question about the personality test or exam. Would that be something like a Myers Briggs or the disc
Mhm.
profile? Something I've
Yeah, they
heard of that
do.
before.
They have the disc and they have Myers Briggs, and then they have like a couple of other ones out there. I would even encourage people to do a test to see what their love language is.
Mm,
That
yeah.
also ties into I wouldn't say necessarily say your mental health, but definitely your emotional health, because sometimes you can be reading or misreading a situation. It's because of how you interpret stuff.
Yes.
So those type of evaluations and stuff are really cool too.
Awesome. You talk about that book, your love language. I tell people all the time that was if there was one book other than the Bible that I would encourage people to read before you get married, it is the five love languages, and getting to understand what your love language is and what your spouse's love language is. And
Mhm.
my wife and I, and excuse me y'all for saying I keep saying it, I'm sorry, but my wife and I, this June we will celebrate 24 years of marriage. We've been together longer, but we've been married 24 years, and we often reference that book. Sometimes I'm going to be a little transparent, and this will probably get me in trouble, but sometimes I tease her, like she'll be doing something and I'll say, you're doing that, but that's your love language. That's not making me feel, that's not filling my love tank because you speak in your language. And she'll
Right.
say, what you talking about? I'll say, well, just because you did this and this, that's your language. Like that's your language, how you speak it. But I need this. And then, we just kind of, joke and laugh about it. But that book right there is so powerful, man. It was it's such an easy read, and it just makes sense. And so definitely, definitely, definitely. Um, so you said, I'm sorry, were you ready to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that even the love languages is different facets of that. So
Mm,
it doesn't just apply to romantic relationships.
Okay. Okay.
So you could, if you, let's say you look at your love language and you recognize your love language after reading it and applying it or looking at different versions of that concept, you may be able to identify your kid's love language or
Mm.
your friend's love language. Or like I've even had friends, one of my good friends just came out the gate one day, asked me, was like, "What's your love language?" And I'm like, "What?" But I answered the question and I told her, and it actually helped our communication.
Wow.
And so she's like, "This is why I think we miss each other sometimes." So she's more of an acts of service kind of person,
Yeah.
right? And then
Right.
because I'm more in the communication, I'm more like words of affirmation. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Listen, I'm asking for your input on this. I need something other than great. I need you to, So once we sit down and we unhash stuff like that, then it helps. So I think it applies more so not just about romance, but I think any relationship. I think you can apply those principles to it.
Oh, that's awesome. I never even thought about that. I seriously didn't. I mean, I had, I guess just because I had read it in the context of, a romantic relationship, but it just makes so much sense. I mean, shoot, we need that on the block. You know what I mean? Like, it'll probably be less shootings if cats just,
Yeah,
and
people
I'm like,
understand. Yeah, people understand where the next person is coming from.
you
I
know
get
what
it.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
for real.
no, I ain't mean it like that, man. Um, wow, awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, yes, you said something earlier about getting different types of mental health help. You said, and excuse my memory, but you were just talking about getting help. You can go in this direction, go in that direction. Um, is there a difference? I mean, all help is help, right? And
Mhm.
you definitely want to, I would say, encourage somebody to at least start the process. But when should somebody or are there maybe some tells? I mean, like for example, obviously, if somebody's having suicidal thoughts,
Mhm.
you would say, "Hey, look, you need to get to a suicide hotline.
Mhm.
You need to get that type of help." But is there some principles or just some things that you would encourage, like, look, maybe start here, maybe read a book, but if you're feeling this way, you need to speak to this type of therapist, you need to do this personality test. Am I making sense what I'm asking, or does it sound like hodgepodge?
No, I think it sounds like you're asking for warning signs.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it. Yes.
So obviously, if you're feeling suicidal, you definitely want to seek help. And sometimes that may look like a voluntary committal.
Hmm.
Sometimes it may look like going to get an assessment because they're going to assess other things like, do you have a plan? Do you have intent and things like that? So there's that facet of it. Or sometimes you may just notice that you don't feel like yourself.
Mm.
So if you feel like usually you're a little more social, but you find like you don't really want to be bothered, you don't really want to be around other people, then
Yeah.
that's a warning sign that there may be something else that's going on. If you're more irritable, there's something else that may be going on. If you find that you really don't have to get up to go to maintain your responsibilities, that's a warning sign. Sometimes a person may not necessarily be suicidal, but they may have recurrent thoughts of death. So you may go from feeling like life is great to, I wonder what things would be like if I wasn't here anymore, or I wish I didn't wake up this morning, or I'm going to bed tonight and I hope that this is a. If you're thinking in that way, not necessarily to commit suicide, but having thoughts that you feel better off dead, then definitely those are warning signs. Or
Okay,
if you
okay,
find
so can I jump in and say, because that's powerful to me, and I've actually spoken to people like that before. Well, I will say something like, "So you okay?" Like they might be sharing, and in my mind, I'm thinking, "Are you suicidal?" And I'll say, I won't just come out and ask them, "Are you suicidal?" But I might say, "Are you okay?" And they'll say, "Well, I'm not thinking about committing suicide, but
mhm,
if I didn't wake up, hey,
mhm,
whatever." They'll say something like that. So you're saying, and then me, I'll say, "Oh, okay, all right, well, let's keep talking." When you're saying no, that's a warning sign. Like you need
mhm.
to, go get some help.
Because it could eventually turn that way if you stay on that track. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so you have warning signs like that. I would say not feeling anything at all. If you're not happy, you're not sad, you're not mad, you're just blah. Or
Mm,
younger people say meh. You just, you don't feel anything. Those are also warning signs. And
mm,
so it's definitely one of those things that you want to stay on top of. It's one thing if I think everyone has a morning where they wake up and they're like, I could have slept in a little longer today, or
right.
I don't have time today. I'm not in the mood for it. I think everyone has days like that. But I think it changes when it's repetitive, especially like clinically, we look for 14 days.
Mm,
So if it's going on for 2 weeks that you're having trouble getting out of bed, or 2 weeks you really don't want to be bothered, 2 weeks that you don't have any type of motivation, your appetite has been gone for 2 weeks, then that's specifically for depression, I should say. Then that means that there may be something going on that needs to be evaluated. And then the other thing too that you mentioned about suicide, especially in the Black community, you have what I call buzzwords, right? So there are in the Black community, there are some words that people may tell you, I'm depressed, but they won't tell you I'm suicidal because of the
mm,
way that suicide sounds and the way that it's perceived. Not a lot of people in the Black community will admit to being suicidal.
mm, mm.
So it's the same thing with some mental illnesses where there may be some people that they'll tell you, I'm depressed or I'm feeling anxious, but people won't say, I'm experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia because that takes on a different type of stigma. Stigma is more so the word that I'm looking for here. Certain types of conditions and certain types of symptoms have stigmas that people may not necessarily be as open to talk about as others.
Right.
So if you're experiencing something, and I would even dare say, if you feel like you're hearing things that no one else can hear, you're seeing things no one else can see, you feel like someone is watching you, following you out to get you, your thoughts and everything is disorganized, definitely go and get help. Those are also some warning signs.
Mm, mm. Oh man, that's so good. That's really, really good. Thank you for sharing all that. That was all really good. Um, well, look, y'all, we are at the end of our interview. What we're going to do right now is have a little moment of inspiration. We'll have an inspirational video, and then we'll be back with some resources and closing thoughts from our guests for this evening. So hang with us, get ready to watch an encouraging video, and we'll be right back. I want to make a bold declaration. You were on God's mind. You were on his mind when he gave life to your soul and placed you in time so that you could experience a variety of things, some bad, some good, but nonetheless you still have air in your lungs. Do me a favor, take a deep breath. Now exhale. You feel that? That's life. The ability to take carbon dioxide, have it transformed into oxygen for your lungs is pretty tight, right? Or maybe I could write of how every second 2 people somewhere in the world die, and 105 people die every minute, but the earth God created, you're still in it. I know sometimes it feels like an abandoned building and you're the only tenant, but for a minute, let's pretend that you're not finished. And sometimes life makes you feel like there's a period and we're at the end of our sentence, but God has a way of showing us that that paragraph is still being written. So even if you feel smitten, forgotten, and bitten by that which is rotten, may I suggest that the biggest problem is not the mountain that you still have to ascend, but it's the mind that convinces the soul that we're at the very end, that time has run out, the curtain is closing, and I'm standing here wondering about the ocean of opportunities that were so close and now it's gone. Am I wrong? I know I'm not the only one that has ever sung that song, but I still believe that I'm on God's mind, because in the portals of time, he still allowed a sperm to fertilize an egg, creating a body, and that body would go on to create a life that is loved and lost, with highs and lows and ups and downs, twists and turns, a life that has many times gotten burned, but more times than I've gotten burned are the times I've learned, because you gotta learn, baby. And it's in this part of the journey that I'm learning that hard times don't necessarily equate to God's absence, but often in the dark, his glory is wrapped in my determination to overcome the odds that are stacked in an unfair fashion. So I don't just see a giant, I see a giant victory. I see a story I'll tell my grandkids of how I conquered a monster. I see the Creator reminding me of the strength my life possesses, and I know that I'm on God's mind. Yes, yes, y'all. We want to let you know that you are on God's mind. You are on God's mind. I know that that might be a concept like, wow, man, wait, how do you know that I'm on his mind? How do you know that we're on his mind? I know that you're on his mind because according to our doctrine, Yeshua came and died, and you know that you're on his mind. You know that he be dealing with your heart. But nonetheless, look, tonight I'm so glad that we had our friend Marisha Mathis, licensed clinical worker, here to share some good principles and tools to help get the new year off started strong. Um, I hope that these things will help you. I know that they will. There's some good things that came down the pipeline tonight. Before we get up out of here, I told Marisha that we have a little segment where we ask just 5 little quick questions just to kind of help you and help me to understand our guests a little bit better. And so, Marisha, I want to ask you these 5 questions, and then I'm going to ask you to share any last words or resources that you'd like to let everybody know about. But first, what is your favorite book other than the Bible? Most Christians be like, "Oh, the Bible, hallelujah."
Right.
I know, we got it. But what's your favorite book?
The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin.
Oh, wow. Okay, okay, okay. What is your favorite meal?
Goodness. I have like probably 2 different combos. So one is pork chop, macaroni, and collards.
Oh, word.
And yeah, then the other one is a baked pasta dish. It has like the baked mozzarella on top. And the other one is pizza. So if it's one of those 3, I don't know. I can't narrow it down between those 3, but
It's all good. Hey, we are pizza fiends up in this joint. I can dig it. And you're from North Carolina, right?
I am. I'm
So
from
you're a
Duplin
Southern girl,
County.
so you know about them pork chops and mac and cheese and all that.
All that, yeah.
That's what's up. Um, if you could speak with one person in history, well, actually not just in history, but someone alive today, or someone that is no longer with us who was alive at some point in history, who would it be and why?
Hmm. I have to think on that one for a second. If I could speak to one person, undead or alive, I don't even want to sound like churchy when I say this,
Okay.
because I know like most people like Diddy, because he know how to make money. But uh, I feel like I would talk to Peter, like the Apostle Peter, because
Okay.
we have some things in common, and I like to sit down and chop it up about what what's really going on and glean from him
Okay.
a little bit.
So you have some things in common with Peter. You carry a little knife in your purse.
No, no, if I did, I couldn't tell you on the air. But I just see like
I'm joking.
some similarities, and when I look at the relationship with Peter, where he always had boldness, but it was just a
Mm,
matter of
mm,
taming it and
yes.
grooming it and maturing it and seeing how that transformed the world once he got a handle on himself, and
Mm, mm,
once he really got a hold of the stuff that was invested in him.
yeah.
I identify with Peter a lot.
Word. That's good. That's good. Are you a sports fan at all?
Yes.
And who is your team, or what teams do you like?
So I can't say that I like teams, but I like soccer.
Okay.
But I usually cheer for I like France because of some of the players, but my biggest team is Brazil. That's one of my favorites for
Okay.
soccer.
Have you ever played soccer? Like, I'm just asking since you're.
No, never. I just enjoy the sport.
Oh,
I enjoy
wow.
the sport. I like soccer, I like basketball, and I like boxing.
Oh,
But I
man.
don't have a favorite in any of those.
That's what's up. That's what's up. When I actually used to box many years ago. But when I was in the military, I was in the best shape of my life, and I was lean. I was just full of energy. I could do all kinds of stuff. And I remember one day for physical training, they said we're going to play soccer. They said we're
Mhm.
going to play soccer today. Man, look, I thought I was in shape. Girl, all we did was run. I was dying. I was like, Lord, I thought I was in shape. Them soccer plays, you really have to be
Yeah.
holding it down, man, if you're
Mhm.
gonna play that sport. So mm, enough respect to them cats. Final question. Vacation. If you could vacation anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
So my best friend and I, we have this saying that the vacation ain't real if the water ain't teal.
Okay.
Um, I would like to go to Zanzibar.
Okay. Say that again.
Zanzibar.
Okay. Enlighten me on Zanzibar.
It's an African country.
Okay. All
Um,
right. Okay.
and I like honestly, I can't. The only reason that I know anything about it is looking at pictures and videos.
Oh wow.
The beaches, they look beautiful, and
Mm,
I want to try the food.
yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the diaspora as well as the different cultures of Africa. So
Yeah.
definitely, I like to go to Zanzibar.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing all those things with us and for sharing all of your information tonight. We truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show. You have definitely been a blessing. I just appreciate you. I know you're busy with everything that's going on. And also, did you want to plug your new book or anything like that, or social media handles and etc.?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first, I want to respond to your thank you and tell you thank you for allowing me to be a part of it and thinking of me. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Um, I do have a new book. It's called Inspired. It's a devotional for creatives. Creatives is just another word for artists. Yep, that's it. Thank you. He's holding up the book in a journal. So that was released last month, and you can get those in a couple. You can find me on social media, but you can call me Marisha is my handle for Instagram, and then Marisha is my name on Facebook. So either one of those. Oh, my website. My website is www.callmerisha.com. So I have a blog and you can go in and read some of the things I talk about mental health and then just a lot of different aspects of life. So I consider it life, God, and art.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. Well, Marisha, thank you so much for being on our show this evening. I certainly appreciate it. And look, everybody, before we get out of here, I just wanted to share a few resources for you that you can use once we get off the air tonight. First, the Black Mental Health Alliance. This information will be up on the screen. The Black Mental Health Alliance is blackmentalhealth.com. Their phone number is 410-338-2642. Also, the National Alliance on Mental Health, that's NAMI.org. It's a website filled with resources for getting help on mental and emotional issues. Also, I want to let you know about the National Suicide Hotline. It's suicidepreventionlifeline.org. If you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, or as Marisha shared earlier, which was really good, if you may not be thinking I want to kill myself, but if I don't wake up, that's cool. Certainly, you can call that number as well. It's 800-273-8255. They are open 24/7. The Association of Black Psychologists, that number is 301-449-3082. Also, want to let you know about the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. That number is 240-485-1001. And finally, to all of my fellow soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines, etc., all of us that are veterans of this country, there is the Veterans Crisis Line. If you're feeling suicidal, if you're struggling, if you just want somebody to talk to, you can go to the Veterans Crisis Line. That's veteranscrisisline.net. It's 800-273-8255. If you go online, you can also click on there. They have a chat option where you can chat right from your device, or you can text. And so, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We will see you again 2 weeks from now for the Black Soul Well podcast. Please tag your friends in the comments if you're watching on Facebook. Share the broadcast. We will see you soon. Grace, peace, and power.